Okay, polyalcoholic. Okay, we're going to do the third tradition. The basic requirement for a good relationship is a mutual desire to make it work. There are many reasons that people stay in relationships that are not good. And feelings of financial security. There's a lot of people who do not want to leave a relationship or in a relationship only because it's financially secure. There are needs for emotional security. Some people can't live alone. They're not, they'd rather be living with somebody who's abusive or whatever than to live alone. And these are relationships that there's not a mutual desire to make them work. Some people stay in relationships because there's children, and they don't want to leave because of the children. So there are a lot of reasons that people are in relationships and don't really have a mutual desire for them to work. They're just together, and those relationships become unsuccessful. So if I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, I want the group to work. I want a mutual desire for us to be working the steps, working the traditions, such as that. That's the same thing with any kind of relationship. The way we get along with each other and the way we have successful relationships is both people want to be in it, and both people are willing to go to any lengths to make the relationship work. So the thing about it is relationships are going to ebb and flow. I mean, there are going to be times when I really want to be here and I'm really happy, and then there's going to be times I'm restless and irritable and discontent. But if somewhere down deep I really want my relationship to work, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to be focused on that. And I will survive the high spots and the low spots. So let's see what the checklist is. Do my actions say that I have a desire to be in this relationship? Do I show Dave I want this relationship to work? Am I doing that? Or am I, despondent, not paying attention, whatever? Do I set myself up as judge of my partner's intentions or sincerity? Do I sit there and say, well, that's not what he meant, this is what he meant, or that's what he meant? And because there's no communication. So do I make judgments on what I think he's thinking? Do I approach my marriage unselfishly? Or do I depend on my mate's language or looks or income or whatever to make me happy? Or do I unselfishly want to love him and make the relationship work? Am I committed? Do I encourage my mate's spiritual growth, his professional growth, his individual growth? Do I encourage him to do the things that he loves to do? Am I able to share my feelings with my partner? And again, that goes back to being safe. Am I safe? Can I be in this relationship and take a risk on telling you the truth about how I feel and be safe? Am I reluctant to work on my part of the relationship? And that means that I have to be able to be in a program and for me, I'm an alcoholic. I have to work the steps. I have to have a sponsor, and this is not my sponsor. I have to have a sponsor, and I have to be looking at what my part is and what part am I playing in this relationship, and am I doing my part? And that usually requires a sponsor, because if I get restless, irritable, and discontent, I'm going to think it's his fault. And it's very clear that when it says, when I am disturbed, no matter what the cause, there's something wrong with me. So if I'm disturbed, I need to look at what's going on with me, not what's going on with Dave. So I need to be working with a sponsor that's keeping me on track. Tradition 4.
Tradition 4 says each of us should be autonomous except in matters affecting the other or our family or society as a whole. We haven't done anything in a long time that has affected society as a whole. So that's not an overriding concern. But what this really means is that each one of us ought to be autonomous. And except when it comes to the obvious places where we cannot be. That has to do with children or with parents and things like that. But otherwise, if you want Polly to come and speak at your convention, you just call her and ask her. If she doesn't have anything planned already and can come, she will tell you less. Yes, she will inform me later that she's going. She doesn't have to come and ask me, can I go? If I want to go backpacking with my buddies, I look to see if we have planned anything together, and if we haven't, I can say yes or no, I'll go. And what this does is give you freedom, okay? First, it increases your responsibility for yourself, and it also increases your sense of freedom in a relationship. That means you don't have to go whining and beg somebody if you can do this or do that. I want Polly to be free. It is much more exciting and fun to be married to someone who is free than who has to come to me, who I try to make come to me and ask my permission to exist. I want nothing to do with that. I want her to be free, happy, joyous, and free. It is more fun to be married to someone that's happy, joyous, and free than it is to somebody you're trying to keep under your thumb. They don't like that, and they fight you all the time. If you have an urge to judge and criticize, try to get over it. Judgment and criticism will never benefit you. It does not produce a desired result, and it just makes you look mean and small. It's also true that you're going to find everything you look for. So if you look for thorns, you're never going to see a rose, but you'll find every thorn on the branch, because that's what you're looking for. So if you have trouble with this, remember that we're talking about learning to be unselfish in here, and that can be a struggle for us. One of the hallmarks of alcoholics is that we are selfish and self-centered. And this is the tradition that will let you be unselfish and other-centered. So, it's not my duty to assess the way Polly drives or dresses or talks or thinks or believes or appears. She doesn't. I don't want her to feel like she has to do a lot of things to keep my ego fluffed up. And because that's unpleasant for her. I don't want to be a chore. I don't want to be a problem in her life. I want to be a source of joy in her life. That's what makes it all work. Every morning I say the third step prayer. God, I offer myself to you to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve me of the bondage of me. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do your will. That means I belong to God, and whatever happens to me is God's business. I make the assumption that God takes me at my word. I mean it sincerely when I say that prayer, and that if something goes wrong, it's not anything going wrong. It's just me with a bad perspective on what's happening. Some of the worst times of my entire life, I was right in the middle of a very big blessing and didn't even know it until later when I could look back on it and say, God, how fortunate it was that happened. So the checklist is, do I feel there are only certain ways to do things? And do those happen to be my ways? Men and women are different and they approach things differently. Do I try to always think about how my autonomy, my decisions made through my autonomy are going to affect Polly? And if so, do I communicate with her at those times and try to come to some agreement? Am I willing to go to any lengths, her lengths, not mine, to protect the integrity of our relationship? Do I carefully avoid injuring her emotionally, physically, or spiritually? Do I judge or criticize her in any way? I try not to do that. The truth is, I have, on balance, I have learned more from Polly and have been changed in a beneficial way as a direct result of her influence, far more than I have suffered from anything along that line. So that is tradition 4.
Tradition 5. Tradition 5. A relationship has but one primary purpose: to love each other and to serve as an expression of God's love. Now, that tradition, when we do it to the group, is each Alcoholics Anonymous group ought to be a spiritual entity having but one primary purpose. Now, this is the long form: that of carrying its message of the alcoholic who still suffers. The short form is each group has but one primary purpose: to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. So our primary purpose in our group and our marriage is to love each other. That's our primary purpose. That's what we're here for. We're here to love each other, to support each other, and not to condemn or put each other down. And this tradition has to do with fully understanding what our primary purpose is, and that is to be loyal to each other and to be loyal to the family, to show unity to each other, show love. Now, maybe I can't always be really loving and nice and kind, and if I can't, maybe sometime the best thing I can do is just say, you know what? I probably just need to go to a meeting right now and just not say anything. But what we need to do is to make sure that because the thing about it is when we say damaging things to each other, Dave will forgive me for saying a damaging thing and for hurting him, but he'll never forget it. So it's very important what I say and what I do. Because once that's out, as I like to say, once you ring the bell, you cannot unring it. It is rung. And I know that Dave will forgive me and has forgiven me many things. But today I try really hard to think before I speak or act. And thank God for some sobriety, because now I'm more capable of doing that than I used to be. I'm not so volatile or just act without thinking. So today it's more of being able to pay attention to what I say and what I do. And it's because what happens is that once we say these hurtful things, they can't be taken back. So that's my primary purpose, is to be a loving partner in this relationship and for us to be an example of a loving relationship. Because I don't think there's anything that's more uncomfortable than to be around people who are married or in a relationship that are fighting with each other. It's nothing more uncomfortable to have to be sitting and witnessing that kind of thing. It's very, very uncomfortable. Checklist. Do we have a primary purpose, and do we know what it is? To love each other and to treat each other with love and kindness. Do I resort to emotional blackmail? Do I start sentences with, if you loved me, you would? I've certainly used those in the past. Do I demand precise equality? Or do I monitor my share as closely as I monitor my mates? One of the things that Dave and I have worked with other couples, and Dave has something that he said, and now we use it. He looked at this man, and he said, she wants this and she wants that, and he says, why don't you just make sure she gets her 50%? If you make sure of that, you'll be better off. So what happens today is I just make, more than try to protect my own, I just make sure Dave gets his. And if I do that, I'm not worrying about where's mine. Because when I'm worrying about where's mine, mine is never enough. His always looks like it's better. That's like when we go to a restaurant, I'm always, what are you going to get? What are you going to get? Because I want to know what he's going to get, because I might like his better than mine. So, do I really understand that my troubles are of my own making? And that's something that we try to remember all the time. I cause my own problems. If I'm unhappy, I don't need to look to Dave. I need to look to me. Do we express God's love in our relationship, and do we share it with others? And I do. I love being married. I love being married to another member of this fellowship, or if he were in Al-Anon or whatever, but just being in a relationship where we're both working a program. I love it, and I want everybody to have that. And I love being married in this program. It's beautiful. And I can't tell you how much I want to share that with everybody, because it has been the greatest joy of my sobriety. I need to like myself, because if I'm down on myself and hate myself, I'm not working a program. And if I don't like myself, I'm not going to like my husband. Am I patient? Am I a patient and uncritical listener? I try to just listen and not have an opinion. Just not have an opinion. And because if I can just listen and be supportive, it works out a lot better than if I offer up suggestions. And sometimes I just need to listen, and if I have a suggestion, what I'll do is kind of give somebody an opportunity, wait a little bit, let them dump whatever is going on, and then come back and say, you remember that what we were talking about a little while ago? Well, I'm just wondering if this might work better. Instead of acting like the authority and the know-it-all, like I've got the answer and you don't. Can I see my partner through God's eyes, or hear my partner through God's ears? And I love what God's done for our relationship. I absolutely love it. I love being married to Dave, and I love having the relationship that we have today. Tradition 6.
6 says we ought never single-handedly endorse, finance, or lend our name to any outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our commitment to each other. And this is a place where we're talking about boundaries. I can't loan money, our money, to other people unless Polly consents to that and agrees with it. I can't invite people to live in our home without talking to her first. That doesn't mean I need to be overly supportive, but if it affects the two of us like that, we have to remember that we're a team, and we have to consider the other one. And in addition to that, I'm not going to work harder on Polly's program than she does. Okay? So each one of us needs the assurance that our well-being and recovery is between us and God. Polly's recovery is between her and God. It's not between her and me and God, or her and me. It's between her and God. I am a human being, and I have feet of clay. I will ultimately, somehow or other, fail you. I won't mean to. I will not like to. But I am a human, and it is unavoidable. Despite my very best intentions, that is going to happen from time to time. And I don't want her sobriety and her life hanging on some relationship with me when I'm fallible. I would rather her life and her recovery hang on God, on her relationship with God. And I'm not at all concerned about that. We encourage each other. We're interested in each other's growth. But we just find that we have to allow each other the dignity to grow and maybe the dignity to fail. sometimes. Failure, I mean, where do you ever learn better lessons than from your failures? Whatever teaches you better than that. So she can have any ideas that she wants along those lines, and I can too, but we cannot commit each other to things in terms of our finances, our house, and so forth, without talking to the other first. So the checklist is, do I encourage and support my partner? Absolutely. You know, what is motivating me when I try to be all things to my partner? You know, sometimes a notable characteristic of alcoholics and people who are in various 12-step programs is that we have very low self-worth. You know, we have very low self-esteem. And that is tough to live with because I do not want her to have low self-esteem. You know, I mean, I don't think she should. I don't think she deserves it, and I don't want her to have it. And it's uncomfortable for me when she talks badly of herself and all. So, you know, I don't want to be. I don't even want to try to be all things to my partner. I don't want her to be dependent on me for much of anything. Now, it probably goes without saying that you have to be reasonably secure within yourself. Well, that's the problem with low self-esteem. You're not secure within yourself. You're always looking for something that will help you that will convince you that you're okay, and you're not about to be tossed in some ash bin somewhere. Can I hear God's voice when I'm screaming at Polly? Not usually. And do I take responsibility for my own emotional and spiritual needs? Do I take responsibility for my own recovery? So it not only is, it works both ways, in other words. Am I in this relationship just to feel needed or loved? I've been in relationships like that. I don't recommend them at all. They don't seem to work very well for me. If you have any luck with one, let me know. Tradition 7.
Tradition 7. Each of us ought to strive to be fully self-supporting, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. This means I am responsible for me. Dave is not responsible for me. I'm responsible for me. It's my job to take care of my spiritual condition. It's not Dave's job to have to say, you know, you need to go to a meeting, you need to call your sponsor, are you doing any, you know, are you reading the big book, are you doing whatever. It is my job to take care of my spiritual condition. And as Dave said last night, we kind of started, it was really exciting because when we retired, and we did this for a while, but always for most of the last 10 years of our working life together, I left for work before Dave got up. So I would, you know, do my spiritual reading and all of that, and then maybe I wouldn't see him again till 10 o'clock at night. So and you know, a lot of us have to live like that. That's what we do. That's kind of the way it is today. And so here we get retired and, we're going to read together. We're going to do all this stuff together. Well, I got up at 4:30 in the morning for a lot of years. And I still don't sleep late. So by the time Dave gets up, I'm well on my day. So I just decided, you know, this is not going to work because what happens is I was ending up skipping my spiritual and quiet time. So anyway, now we're kind of not doing that. But he's not responsible for my emotional security. I'm responsible for that. Dave doesn't have to act in a certain way or talk in a certain way to keep me from being angry, hurt, and such as that. In fact, I am probably less sensitive than Dave is. And I fire pretty direct. And sometimes he'll just kind of stop me, you know, he'll say, "Ooh, mercy." He says, I'm just like doing it too sharp. And so he just kind of, you know, pulls me back a little bit and says, you know, that just sounded a little harsh. So, and I tend to like people who are direct and who talk to me direct. So sometimes I can be a little course on that. So I have to kind of watch it. And physically, it's not Dave's responsibility to say, did you go to the doctor? Are you taking care of yourself? That's not his business. That's my business. It's my business to go to the gym. It's my business to take care of myself, because we're both adults here. So what happens is we're two adults, and we're going to be self-supporting. We're going to take care of ourselves. And we have also, through our married life, had to each be financially self-supporting, because it took both of our incomes to live in the style in which we wanted to live. So we have both been financially self-supporting as well in the relationship. So it's not Dave's job to make sure that I'm taken care of. And sometimes I can get a little too mothery. That's why I'm in Al-Anon, because Dave had heart surgery, and sometimes I can, what do you think? You want to do this? I can be, and he's like, he'll just say, finally tell me, just back off. I'm fine. I'll tell you when I need you. So, and that's good. That's as it should be. Okay, the checklist. Do I try to be the boss? Well, let me just tell you what. Yes, I do. I do it without even thinking about it. And we had one of my sponsees' husbands came up to do some work on our house, and he spent a week with us. And they'd get up in the morning, and I was fixing them breakfast and doing everything. I was just sort of like firing orders at the two of them. And Alan looked back one day and he says, "You are the bossiest bitch I know." So I've been known to sort of like take over, and he's just so used to it, he probably wasn't even paying me any attention. He just like tuned me out. So, do my needs for comfort or a feeling of safety limit my partner's options? Am I so insecure that Dave doesn't feel safe, that everything he has to do is just keep my tender feelings taken care of? And that's not his responsibility. Do I accept responsibility for myself? I love my AA sponsor is all about being accountable. And I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous knowing that we have to be accountable. And Dave is not responsible for my feelings. He is not responsible. I'm responsible. Do I try to manage and control through the purse strings? We neither one do that. And this one says, am I managed and controlled by the purse strings? No. But Dave and I have had different times in our life. It's kind of like the first half of our marriage, I did our finances and paid all the bills, and now Dave does it. So it's kind of like we've each had a turn at it. Neither one of us like it, but we've each had a turn at it, because whoever's in charge of the money knows how bad or good it really is. And most of the time it's the prior bad. So, but the other one is just, skipping along. So, do I think that because something is good for me personally, that it's also good for Dave? And a lot of times I'll get really excited about doing something, and Dave said, he'll say, well, I really don't want to do that, but I'm delighted you want to do it. And I used to get my feelings kind of hurt. Why didn't he want to do what I want to do? But then when he started asking me to do things he liked to do and I didn't want to do them, I got it. Do I deceive myself by thinking how unselfish and giving I am, when in reality I'm giving only to get what I want? And that's what I used to do. I used to think I was such a nice person. The reason I was being so nice is so you would do what I wanted you to do. And today I really think that Dave and I have a lot of honesty between the two of us. And it feels safe today. It feels real safe to know that there's no hidden agenda. And I don't have to guess about what he's thinking or feeling. And that's very comfortable and very safe. Even though he may tell me something I don't want to hear, it's still safe to know that it's the truth. And that's still safer to me than not knowing the truth. Tradition 8.
8 is our relationship should remain forever an unprofessional, free, and giving relationship each to the other. I'm not a professional carpenter or a plumber. Polly is not a professional cook or maid. And when it comes to the things that keep a pair of lives going, we try to share. And usually the one who is the most interested does what needs to be done. If I'm the one that's hungry, I usually, if it's not a meal time, I just go cook myself something to eat. If I have a shirt that I want to wear and Polly's not there, Polly, I mean, I don't know how this sound is going to sound, and nor do I care. But Polly likes to iron my shirts, for example. She likes to take care of me. And I like for her to do that. And there are a lot of things I like to do for her. I like to make sure that her car is taken care of and so forth. So, there are things that seem naturally to fall into the female side of the ledger and things that seem naturally to fall into the male side for us. Does that mean it has to fall that way for you? How would I know? That's up to you. But I know that for Polly, if I will take out the garbage without being asked or threatened, it's a kind of an act of love. And and you might want to make a note of that, gentlemen. I also have to avoid taking a professional or a know-it-all attitude about things. I am not a professional anything when it comes to relationships, and personal opinions in the final analysis are just that, personal. And so I'm not a certified expert on marriage or alcoholism or the 12 steps or child psychology or spirituality or humility or any of those things. What makes me think I know so much? I don't know when Polly should call her sponsor. I mean, God doesn't come and get me to try to get me to make Polly do things. I've never had God whisper in my ear, "Hey, Dave, here's what I want you to get Polly to do." I guess he talks to her directly because he doesn't seem to need me in the middle. And these are just common sense, and a lot of intent lies here. Is it fun to get up right in the middle of a football game and take the garbage out? No, it's not fun. If you're waiting for it to be fun, it's never going to happen. Is it right? Yeah, I think it is. You have to decide for you, but I think it is. And so the checklist is: do I try to sound like an expert or a professional on things? And if so, why do I need to do that? Is my security at risk? Is my fear triggered? Does my ego, my precious ego, feel threatened? Do I believe that one or the other of us ought to be in charge of something or everything based on our experience or our education or our job or anything? I've seen many people that formulate those kinds of ideas in their own mind and think, because I am a general, or I am a doctor, or I am something, that I am in charge, and I deserve to be in charge. And I have this desperate urge to leap off into left field with that and go somewhere else, but I'm not gonna. Can I give for fun and for free, requiring nothing in return? That is the best thing in the world. Just do it for fun and for free. You don't have to do anything for me. This is just for you. Or do I draw a quid pro quo Do I draw back on that as a life strategy? You know, I did this for you, so you owe me. Do I charge my mate a fee for being in a relationship with me? And if I do, how expensive is my love and companionship? Do I take hostages in my relationships? Do I feel that Polly belongs to me? Do I really understand that I reap what I sow? You know, what goes around comes around. Isn't that something? Who would have ever thought that was true? Have you ever honked the horn at somebody for doing something and 5 minutes later found yourself doing the same thing? That happens to me all the time. You know, it's like God saying, here's what it feels like, Dave. So, Tradition 9.
Tradition 9, our relationship ought never be organized or under the control of one partner. Dave and I realize that we are both individuals, and each alcoholic has been an individual who, because of his alcoholism, could seldom control himself, nor can any other human being govern the alcoholic's obsession to drink, his drive to have things his own way. Now, our basic instinct is to want things my way. The 12 and 12 talks a lot about our basic instincts. And my basic instinct is to be selfish and self-centered and want things my way. And there is a word in relationships that I think is so important, and that word is compromise. We have got to learn to compromise. I cannot have my own way all the time. And that means I can't always go to the movie I want to go to, or always go to the restaurant I want to go to, or always whatever, do what I want to do. And what I try to do is that Dave and I try to just, if we did something that was so fun, and Dave, it was a real big compromise for Dave. And I told him, I said, I just really liked our granddaughters that live in California. Katie kept saying, Grandma, can we go camping? And Dave, he just didn't know what we were going to do with these kids out camping. And I said, but you're the expert on camping. And I don't know how to put the tents up and all that kind of stuff. And we took our granddaughters camping. And we had so much fun. Because I hung out with the girls and we played and did all this stuff. And Dave did all the camping stuff. So it was amazing. We had a really good time. But at the time, it probably didn't look that interesting. But what he did was he compromised. And as it turned out, we had a great time. And I've done the same thing with him. I've compromised. I told you Dave's into this outdoor stuff. Well, Seattle had this whole series on mountain climbing and what have you. And to me, I thought, we're going to go to these lectures, and they're going to be boring and dull. And we went, and Dave asked me to go with him. And in my head, I said yes, because he does so many things for me. But that was my perception of what was going to happen. And I loved it. And that's what I told him. I said, this is not, I think I was kinder about it at the time. I said, this wasn't what I expected. So sometimes we make a compromise because we're doing it, because our partner wants to do it. And it turns out fabulous for us. So that was what happened. That's just some examples of what happens when I'm willing to make a compromise and with my mate. And you know what? We don't keep score of who compromised last. We just don't do that. So, because what happens is if we put it in God's hands, it always works out. If God's in charge, then it's amazing how it always just, if I know for sure that, Dave and I just always try to keep God in the center of our relationship. We talk about God a lot. We if we're going to make decisions, we pray together to God. We try to keep God in the center of our relationship. And if we do that, we don't have to keep score, because God's in charge. Neither one of us are. Checklist. Do I try to be the boss again? I always get the traditions about being the boss.
It's not an accident.
Am I mature enough to understand and use the principles of AA in my relationship? And I do, because I know in AA, the more I give, the better I'll feel. Even though I want, sometimes when I know I need a meeting or I need to talk to my sponsor, when I start feeling, he needs to do it for me. And I get that feeling. It's always him. He always gets to do what he wants to do. When I start getting that attitude and feeling like that, I know I need a meeting and I know I need to talk to my sponsor, because that means I'm all into Polly. Do I exercise patience and humility in the things I do in my relationship? And that has been a learned thing. To be patient and not speak before I think has been a learned thing, because my character defect was to speak and think later. Do I assume responsibility, or do I try to take on authority? And Dave and I are both pretty good. As we get this thing about being the boss, what's really true is neither one of us really want to be in charge. That's really the truth. Have I learned how and when to step aside gracefully when I begin to overstep my bounds? And Dave's really good about that, but a lot of times I'm the one that has to say, whoops, I'm sort of in your business again. And Dave hasn't had a necessity to go to Al-Anon, but I continue to go because I'm always in somebody's business. Who decides who does what in the day-to-day business of our relationship? We each have a calendar. And we each have a life, and we each have a life separately, and we have a life together. But we do things. I mean, he has the guys he sponsors and the things he likes to do, and I have the women I sponsor and the things. I mean, we let each other know. And if I'm going to be out of town, I don't see anything planned, and we're courteous to each other. But we I say, do you have anything special planned? Because I'm going to Stockholm. And he'll say, nope, go. Nothing on the calendar. So, but he doesn't, get an attitude of, how long are you going to be gone? Where are you going? Doesn't take on an attitude like that. Go have fun. And has had so much fun meeting the friends that I met in Stockholm. So those are the gifts that we get to have. Am I a peace at any price person? I kind of used to be. I'm one of, like I said, I'm an Al-Anon, so I like, and I'm also a Libra. That's my birthday thing, and I like things in order. I like things peaceful. I do not like conflict. And but today I know that sometimes there has to be conflict in order for there to be peace. And today I feel safe enough in my relationship to bring up something that might be distasteful. And there was a time when I would hold on to that and then have a resentment because I wasn't willing to be honest. Tradition 11. 10, sorry.
10, we are each entitled to our own opinion on outside issues, hence our name ought never be drawn into public controversy. And that simply means that we are careful about something that is very important in AA and in life, and that is live and let live. It used to be that when I would get into a heated argument with Polly, if I listened very carefully, I could hear her mind snap shut. And then I would have to ask myself the question, how likely is it that God's will for me is to yell and scream at one of his children that he loves so much? And I don't want to ever have to say to God, I am so sorry that I hurt one of your kids because I cannot or will not control myself. So that's the price of being a big mouth, loud mouth bully and insisting on having your own way. Live and let live. I don't carry our opinion around. I carry mine. Polly carries hers. We don't agree on everything. I mean, that would be silly to think that any two people could agree on everything. That's not ever happened and not ever will. I have to let Polly be who she is, I mean, the point is, if you can't be who you are, what's the point of life? I mean, why bother living a life if you can't be who you are? It's just, it's silly to even think about. And on top of that, we need to always be courteous to each other. I mean, that's the very least we can do. The very essence of AA and Al-Anon and all these other programs is to be courteous and considerate of other people, all other people. So, another thing is that we don't speak ill of each other in public. That sort of thing gets to be a habit. And if you get in the habit of speaking ill of your mate in public, what you are doing is giving that opinion, that temporary opinion, an authenticity and a longevity that you don't want it to have. You're going to change your mind in 5 minutes. You're not going to feel that way anymore. But you've already shut your big mouth off. So people are going to go around saying, you know what Dave said about Polly? For who knows how long? Months? Years? Who knows? So, it's just important for me that I don't ever do that in public about my wife. I don't ever feel like doing that anyway, so it's not that much of a problem anymore. But, in other words, love is more of an action than a state of mind. Okay, if you love somebody, you treat them like you love them. Do you want to know if somebody loves you or not? Ask your heart. Your heart knows that. Knows the answer to that question. Do you feel loved? Do their actions say "I love you" or not? So, in other words, do the words that you get match the actions? So what would Polly say if you ask her whether or not I loved her? Well, you can ask her, and I'm not afraid of her answer. Do either one of us have emotional scars from repeated, heated controversy and struggles for power and control? We don't anymore. The biggest, I think the biggest thing that is a problem that we have to deal with in relationships is fear. And I think fear underlies all this well-known drive for power and control. I think we're afraid that we've got to have it our way, or somebody will make us go somewhere that we don't think we want to go, or make us do something that we don't think we want to do. And I don't think most of the time we ever think it through well enough to know whether we want to go there or whether we want to do that. So fear is a problem in this regard. How important is it for me to be right? Would I rather be right or happy? I'd rather be happy. There was a philosopher one time, a very famous philosopher by the name of Immanuel Kant, and I think he was from Germany, if I'm not mistaken. Just seeing if you're still awake. And he said, and I have to paraphrase, you can't know everything there is to know about anything. So what if I take everything you know about something and on which your very firm opinion rests and take away that information and replace it with equally valid but different information about the same thing? Would you change your mind? Maybe. So how can you ever know that you're right? Well, you can. Well, so don't let right be that critical to you, being right. Don't let being right be all that critical. You may be defending something that's wrong. Do I expect my partner to see and feel the same as me on issues? Can I believe in the idea that it's none of my business what other people think of me? Do you know I believe in that devoutly? It is none of my business what you think of me. But my life depends on what I think of you. That took a long time to internalize that. But it's internalized. I really believe it. It's none of my business what you think of me. My life depends on what I think of you. Can I let my partner disagree with my ideas and feelings without feeling rejected and without getting defensive? Yeah, boy, I used to get defensive at the drop of a hat. And when you get defensive like that, most people want to fight back. They say, oh, you want a piece of me? Come on. 11.
Tradition 11, we individually convey our beliefs and philosophy through attraction rather than promotion. We are in charge of our own anonymity. And to us, this says that we rely on attraction to each other and that our own anonymity is a personal asset. And what I do is I want to be an attraction. I want to be an attraction as a couple. I want to be an attraction as an AA member. I want to be an attraction I want people to want to be married. I believe in the institution of marriage. And I always did, I just didn't know how to do it. And thanks to a lot of people today that have helped us through, I want to be a program of attraction. I want to be an attraction for marriage, and I want to be an attraction for a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I want to be an attraction as a family. I didn't know how to be a mom. I didn't know how to do that, and I did a really, really poor job at being a mom. And thanks to coming to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I know that my job is to be a good mom, whether my sons are good sons or not. That's not important. My job is to be a good mom. And that's how I feel about being a grandmother. I feel the same way. It's the way I feel about being a sponsor. I want to be an attraction. And that means that I have to keep myself. I'm not going to go around and not brush my teeth or comb my hair. So I have personal attraction as far as the care of my own self. And then it's the care of my emotional and spiritual condition. And it's the care of being a promotion and how I treat my children and grandchildren. I don't want to, like my son says, don't yell at me from one floor to the next. And so I take that seriously. I don't want to do things that offend people. And I want to be an attraction in every aspect of my life. And especially as an AA member. And because I believe that that's what people see when they walk into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, is they don't know what the steps are or anything like that. What they see is what kind of sober people, and that's where I learned it first. I have learned how to have a relationship in the rooms of AA through what I learned as working with the sponsor first. I didn't know anything about relationships. And my first relationship was having an honest, complete, truthful relationship with my sponsor. And from there, I learned to go to the other relationships in my life. But it was that first trusting relationship that set the ball in motion. Checklist for Tradition 11. Is my relationship treated with care in public? And absolutely. Again, there's nothing more uncomfortable than being with people who are not getting along or who are fighting or whatever in public. I don't want to be witness to that. It makes me uncomfortable. I don't know what to do with myself. So I don't want to be that. I don't want to be like that. And I feel like that Dave and I are mature adults, and we don't have to act that way in public. We can wait till we get home if we have something to discuss. Do I think my relationship is attractive to others? I certainly try. Is my partner ever embarrassed or humiliated by my appearance or actions? I'm sure he is. And I don't think so much my appearance at some point in time, because I am him. I think it's our actions more than anything, is that sometimes we do things that embarrass the other person. Do I give relationships a bad name? I really try not to, because I think all relationships are. I think one of the things that is, we come in here and we're people who are incapable of conducting a personal, a partnership with another person. Here we are, these people, and it's like, I'm not going to have a relationship with them, or I'm not going to have a relationship with them. And what I try to do, and what my sponsor tried to do with me, she said, this program teaches us to have relationships, not dissolve relationships. We're here to have them. And the hardest thing is relationships, because people are people. So, and what happens is I'm not perfect. And I'm asking you, please cut me some slack. But that means that I have to cut you some slack and not expect you to be perfect. We're all just people. And I truly believe that we're all doing the best we can. Can I go about my affairs without giving my partner advice on how he should conduct his affairs? Well, I've been known to give a little advice.
Encouragement.
Encouragement. He call it encouragement. And one of the things I like to do is I like to do things anonymously, and do something really sweet for Dave, and him have to just, where did this come from? It's kind of like, I love to do that, because I have an AA sponsor that she says, do something nice for someone, and if you get caught, it doesn't count. And so I like to do little things and just be anonymous and not have to be patted on the back for having done it. So to just do something without being caught. How do I feel when my partner criticizes the way I'm trying to live my recovery program? Well, that's something Dave and I talked about from the very beginning, and that is, we do not get into each other's program. And that's something that's his business and my business. Which do I give more of to my partner, positive strokes or negative zingers? And I'm a person who I like to give to people good things. It makes me feel bad to criticize. And one of the things I've learned through life is there is no such thing as constructive criticism. Criticism is meant to hurt. And so what I have to do is be very careful that I don't criticize how other people do things. What happens when one partner in the relationship is getting noticeably better and the other is not? We haven't experienced that. I think Dave and I have grown at different paces at different times. And so what we do is we've been able to encourage and help each other along the way. So that's worked out good for us. Tradition 12.
This is going to take about 2 seconds. You can ask yourself this question: how do I treat my wife? How do I treat my husband, my parents, my children, my friends? And if you don't like the answers when you ask yourself that question, what can you do to change? Because nobody is born knowing how to do all this. And if you're going only with what you were born with, you have yet to face the fact that you're going to have to change, because you are not perfect. I am not perfect. Nobody's perfect. So what can I do to change? Well, the answers we have found for us, because we're both alcoholics, is AA and Al-Anon. They have made us into the kind of people we wanted to be. So our answer has been the steps and the traditions and the fellowship and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon. And if you don't like what you find, remember that I don't like to say you, but I have to remember that I am not trying to make a better husband. I'm trying to make a better me. If I can make a better me, being a better husband will be part of that, a big part of that. I don't want Polly trying to be a better wife. I want her to try to be a better Polly. And so just remember the little prayer that we started with earlier that caused all of you to squirm uncomfortably in your seats. God, treat me tomorrow the way I treat other people today. Thank you very much.